Sarah Mitchell had always trusted her research team completely. After 5 years of working together on environmental studies across remote locations, she never imagined they would leave her behind in the Amazon rainforest. But, as she stood alone in the dense green wilderness, watching the helicopter disappear into the cloudy sky, the harsh reality hit her like a falling tree branch. The morning had started like any other expedition day. Sarah woke up in her tent at their temporary research camp, listening to the familiar sounds of howler monkeys and exotic birds. Her team was studying the effects of climate change on rare plant species deep in the Brazilian Amazon. They had been camped for 3 weeks, collecting samples and documenting their findings. Dr. Marcus Webb, the lead researcher, had called an emergency meeting after breakfast. Sarah remembered his nervous expression as he announced that funding had been cut, and they needed to evacuate immediately. The helicopter could only make one trip due to weather conditions, he explained, and Sarah volunteered to stay behind to pack the remaining equipment and samples. "Don't worry, we'll be back for you tomorrow morning," Marcus had promised, avoiding her eyes. The other team members, Jennifer, Carlos, and Ahmed, had nodded in agreement, but something felt wrong. Sarah noticed how quickly they gathered their personal belongings, leaving behind expensive research equipment they had fought hard to bring on the expedition. As the helicopter lifted off, Sarah waved from the small clearing they used as a landing zone. She expected to feel lonely, but confident that rescue was coming. Instead, an icy fear crept through her chest. The pilot had given her a strange look, almost pitiful, before closing the helicopter door. Now she understood why. Hours passed, and Sarah tried to stay busy organizing the equipment. She rationed the remaining food and water, thinking she only needed supplies for one night. But, as evening approached, she found Marcus's satellite phone hidden under his sleeping bag with a note that made her blood run cold. "Sarah, the university canceled the project. No one is coming back. I'm sorry. There's enough supplies for a week if you're careful. Good luck." The betrayal hit her harder than the dangerous situation. These people had been her colleagues, her friends. Jennifer had been her roommate in graduate school. Carlos had celebrated her birthday just 2 months ago. How could they abandon her in one of the most dangerous places on Earth? Sarah spent her first night alone listening to every sound in the jungle. The darkness seemed alive with movement. Strange calls echoed through the trees, and she could hear large animals moving through the underbrush nearby. Every shadow looked like a potential threat. She had basic survival training from her outdoor education background, but the Amazon was different from anything she had experienced. When morning came, Sarah took inventory of her situation. She had enough food for maybe 5 days if she was very careful. Water would be easier to find with purification tablets, but she only had a 2-week supply. The research camp had solar panels for power, but no communication equipment besides the broken satellite phone. Marcus had taken the GPS device and emergency beacon. The nearest town was Puerto Santos, about 50 miles northeast according to her memory of the maps. But reaching it meant traveling through dangerous terrain filled with poisonous snakes, jaguars, hostile indigenous tribes, and drug traffickers who used the jungle as their highway. Sarah had heard stories of researchers who went missing in these forests and were never found. On her second day alone, Sarah discovered that someone had been watching the camp. Fresh footprints appeared around the perimeter, too large to be from her team. The prints looked like military boots, deep and purposeful. Someone was tracking their location, and now they knew she was alone and vulnerable. Fear turned to anger as Sarah realized the full extent of her abandonment. Her team had known about the Watchers. They had known about the dangers. Yet they left her anyway, probably thinking she would never survive to expose their cowardice. But Sarah Mitchell had not earned 3 degrees in environmental science and survival biology by giving up when things got difficult. She began planning her survival strategy like a research project. First, she needed to secure the camp and create defenses. Second, she had to find a reliable water source and food supply. Third, she needed to signal for rescue or find a way to reach civilization. Most importantly, she had to avoid whoever was tracking the camp. Sarah spent the day camouflaging the research equipment and creating hidden supply caches around the area. She moved her sleeping area away from the main camp to a concealed spot near a small stream. Using her botanical knowledge, she identified edible plants and gathered materials for making traps and tools. That evening, she heard vehicles in the distance, multiple engines moving slowly through the forest. Sarah climbed a tall tree with her binoculars and spotted armed men in camouflage uniforms searching the area systematically. They carried military-grade weapons and moved with professional precision. These were not local hunters or park rangers. From her high perch, Sarah watched the armed group discover the research camp. They searched through the abandoned equipment methodically, clearly looking for something specific. One man held what looked like a photograph, comparing it to something he found among her team's belongings. Sarah's heart raced as she realized they were not just passing through. They were hunting for her research team, and now they had found evidence that someone was still in the area. The leader of the group barked orders in accented English. Sarah caught fragments of conversation about the woman and finding her before she reports back. Her blood turned cold as the pieces came together. Her research team had stumbled onto something dangerous, something worth killing for. Marcus and the others had not just abandoned her to save money. They had abandoned her to save their own lives. Sarah spent the night moving through the jungle, putting distance between herself and the armed searchers. She carried only essential supplies, leaving the rest of her carefully planned caches behind. Every step took her deeper into the wild Amazon, further from any hope of easy rescue, but away from immediate danger. As dawn broke on her third day alone, Sarah found herself in a part of the rainforest that seemed untouched by human presence. Ancient trees towered hundreds of feet above, their canopy so thick that only scattered beams of sunlight reached the forest floor. The air was thick with moisture and the rich smell of decomposing vegetation. Strange flowers bloomed in impossible colors, and butterflies the size of dinner plates drifted between the branches. But Sarah had no time to appreciate the natural beauty. She could hear the distant sound of helicopters, and she knew her pursuers had not given up. Her botanical knowledge told her she was in primary growth forest, meaning no roads or settlements for many miles. Her only hope was to keep moving and stay hidden until she could find help or reach the river system that might lead to populated areas. Sarah's training kicked in as she fell into a rhythm of careful movement. She used animal trails when possible, always checking for fresh signs of dangerous wildlife. She marked her path with subtle signs that would not alert her pursuers but might help rescue teams find her trail later. Every few hours, she climbed tall trees to check for signs of civilization or to spot her pursuers. On her fourth day, Sarah made a discovery that changed everything. Hidden in a grove of cecropia trees, she found the remains of an old military camp. Rusted equipment and faded camouflage netting suggested it had been abandoned for years, but recent use was obvious. Fresh boot prints, cigarette butts, and food wrappers indicated that someone had been using this location as a base recently. Sarah explored the abandoned camp carefully, finding supplies that previous occupants had left behind. Military rations, water purification equipment, camouflage clothing, and, most importantly, a cache of survival gear that looked like it belonged to Special Forces soldiers. The equipment was high quality and well-maintained, suggesting that whoever used this camp was professional and well-funded. Among the supplies, Sarah found something that gave her hope. A military-grade radio, still functional, with spare batteries. She also discovered maps marked with locations throughout the Amazon basin, showing routes, safe houses, and contact points. Some of the markings were recent, suggesting that this network was still active. But as Sarah examined the maps more closely, she realized that the markings showed more than just travel routes. They indicated military operations, surveillance points, and what looked like drug interdiction activities. This was not a camp used by criminals. This was a base for some kind of law enforcement or military operation. Sarah's heart jumped when she heard movement approaching the camp. She quickly gathered the radio and essential supplies, hiding in the thick undergrowth just as two figures emerged from the jungle. But these were not the same armed men who had been hunting her. These soldiers moved differently, with more caution and awareness. Their equipment was different too, more advanced and better maintained. From her hiding spot, Sarah watched as the two soldiers conducted a systematic sweep of the camp. They moved with the efficiency of highly trained professionals, communicating through hand signals and checking every possible hiding spot. One soldier was tall and lean, with graying hair that suggested experience. The other was younger, but equally skilled, moving through the jungle like he had been born there. The older soldier spoke quietly into a radio headset. "Base, this is Recon 2. The cache has been disturbed. Someone's been here recently, probably within the last 12 hours. We found civilian boot prints and evidence of equipment removal." Sarah's blood turned cold as she realized these soldiers were tracking her just like the others. But something about their professional demeanor and quality equipment suggested they might be legitimate military rather than the criminal organization that had been hunting her research team. The younger soldier examined the boot prints more closely. "These prints are too small for our missing persons. This could be from a different civilian, possibly a woman based on the size and gait pattern." "Copy that. Continue sweep and gather intelligence. If we have a lost civilian in the area, she could be in serious danger from the Ortega cartel operation. They've been moving significant personnel through this sector." Sarah's heart raced as she heard mention of a cartel. Her research team had stumbled into the middle of a drug trafficking operation, and now both sides were hunting for her. But these soldiers seemed to be working against the cartel, which meant they might help her if she could make contact safely. The decision to reveal herself was the most difficult of Sarah's life. She had been betrayed by people she trusted, hunted by armed criminals, and abandoned in one of the most dangerous environments on Earth. Every instinct told her to stay hidden and trust no one. But she was running out of time, supplies, and options. Sarah made her choice. She stepped out of hiding with her hands raised, the military radio visible in her grasp. "Please don't shoot. I'm an American civilian, and I need help." The two soldiers reacted instantly, weapons raised but fingers off triggers. Their training was obvious in how quickly they assessed the threat level and adjusted their response. The older soldier kept his weapon ready while the younger one moved to flank her position. "Ma'am, please remain calm and keep your hands visible." Sarah's first lesson in becoming an asset for Navy SEAL operations began immediately. Sergeant Rodriguez and Specialist Chen moved her to a more secure location deeper in the jungle, where they established a temporary observation post overlooking a major river bend that served as a trafficking route for the Ortega cartel. The transformation from abandoned academic to military intelligence asset was brutal and swift. Rodriguez explained that Sarah's survival depended on her ability to think and act like a soldier, not a researcher. Dr. Mitchell, your botanical knowledge and observation skills are valuable, but they won't keep you alive if you freeze up during combat. We need to teach you basic tactical awareness in the next 24 hours. Chen took charge of Sarah's crash course in jungle warfare survival. Unlike her university training, this education was intensely practical and potentially life-saving. He taught her how to move silently through dense vegetation, how to read signs of human activity, and how to distinguish between normal jungle sounds and potential threats. "The key to staying alive out here is becoming part of the environment," Chen explained as he showed Sarah how to apply camouflage face paint. "Humans are predators, but we're also prey animals when we're in someone else's territory. You need to think like both at the same time." Sarah's scientific mind absorbed the tactical training like a sponge. She learned to identify the difference between cartel foot patrols and indigenous hunters by the way they moved through the forest. Traffickers moved in straight lines, focused on speed and efficiency. Indigenous people moved with the natural flow of the terrain, leaving minimal traces of their passage. Rodriguez taught Sarah basic radio protocols and hand signals. "Communication is what keeps small units alive in hostile territory," he explained. "If we get separated, you need to be able to contact extraction or call for support without giving away our position to enemy forces." The SEAL team's mission, Sarah learned, was more complex than simple drug interdiction. They were gathering intelligence on a new trafficking route that connected Colombian cocaine production with distribution networks in the United States. The Ortega cartel had established sophisticated jungle bases that allowed them to move massive quantities of drugs through areas where conventional law enforcement could not operate. The DEA and local authorities can hit the endpoints, Rodriguez explained during their first night at the observation post. They can raid labs in Colombia and arrest dealers in Miami. But the transportation network through the Amazon is almost impossible to track using traditional methods. That's where we come in. Sarah's role was to use her environmental expertise to help identify cartel installations that were camouflaged to look like natural features. Her trained eye could spot irrigation systems hidden among natural water sources, detect non-native plant species used for concealment, and identify signs of chemical contamination from drug processing that other observers might miss. On their second day working together, Sarah proved her value by spotting something the SEALs had overlooked. While observing a seemingly empty river bend through binoculars, she noticed that the vegetation pattern on one small island was inconsistent with natural growth. "That's not a natural formation," Sarah whispered, pointing toward the island. "Those trees are arranged in too regular a pattern, and the understory growth is wrong for this ecosystem. Someone planted those trees to create concealment." Chen studied the island through his scope. "I don't see anything unusual. It looks like normal jungle to me." Sarah smiled grimly. "That's because whoever designed it knows enough about botany to fool casual observation. But they made mistakes that a plant ecologist would spot immediately. Those Cecropia trees are too old to be pioneer species in that location, and the heliconias are growing in the wrong soil conditions." Rodriguez called for surveillance drones to investigate Sarah's observation. The thermal imaging confirmed her suspicions. The island concealed a sophisticated fuel depot and communications center, invisible from ground level, but clearly artificial when examined with scientific knowledge of plant ecology. "Outstanding work, Dr. Mitchell," Rodriguez said. "That facility wasn't on any of our intelligence maps. You just identified a major node in their supply network." The discovery led to Sarah's first real test as an intelligence asset. The team needed detailed reconnaissance of the hidden facility, which meant getting close enough to document personnel, equipment, and operational procedures. For Sarah, this meant applying her jungle skills in a situation where discovery could mean torture and death. The reconnaissance mission began before dawn on their third day together. Sarah followed Chun through the dense forest, practicing the silent movement techniques he had taught her. Every step had to be carefully placed to avoid snapping twigs or disturbing vegetation in ways that might alert sentries. Moving through the Amazon at night was like traveling through an alien world. Strange sounds echoed from the darkness above, and Sarah could sense large animals moving through the trees nearby. Poisonous snakes, aggressive insects, and dangerous mammals made every step potentially lethal, even without the threat of armed guards. Chun led Sarah to an observation point on the riverbank directly across from the hidden facility. Through night vision equipment, they could see guards patrolling the perimeter and boats arriving with supplies throughout the night. Sarah documented everything she observed, using her scientific training to create detailed notes about personnel, equipment, and operational patterns. The facility was larger and more sophisticated than anyone had expected. Sarah counted at least 20 guards, multiple radio antennas, and what appeared to be a small laboratory setup for testing drug purity. Boats arrived every 2 hours, following precise schedules that suggested military-level operational discipline. "This isn't just a fuel depot," Sarah whispered to Chun. "They're running a full logistics operation here. Quality control, communications, probably financial transactions too. This is a major hub, not just a way station." Chun nodded grimly. "Which means it's heavily defended and critically important to their network. Taking this place down would seriously disrupt their operations, but it would also trigger massive retaliation against anyone they suspected of providing intelligence." Sarah understood the implication. By helping identify this facility, she had made herself a high-value target for the cartel. They would not simply kill her if they captured her. They would torture her for information about SEAL operations and use her death as a warning to other potential informants. The reality of her situation hit Sarah during their extraction from the observation point. She was no longer just a lost civilian trying to survive until rescue. She was a military intelligence asset with knowledge that could save or cost lives. The scared researcher who had been abandoned by her colleagues was gone, replaced by someone harder and more focused. Rodriguez confirmed her new status when they returned to their temporary base. "Dr. Mitchell, Based on your performance and the intelligence you've provided, Higher Command has authorized your official recruitment as a civilian contractor with Navy Special Operations. You'll receive compensation, training, and protection in exchange for continued cooperation. The offer was both tempting and terrifying. Sarah would gain access to resources, training, and protection that could keep her alive in the jungle. But she would also be committed to continuing dangerous missions with no guarantee of survival. Her abandoned research career seemed like a lifetime ago. What happens if I refuse? Sarah asked. We extract you to the nearest safe location and arrange civilian transportation home, Rodriguez replied. But, Dr. Mitchell, the cartel knows someone provided intelligence about their facility. They'll hunt for the source until they find it. Running away doesn't guarantee safety. Sarah spent that night considering her options while listening to radio communications between SEAL teams operating throughout the region. The scope of the military operation was massive, involving dozens of personnel and millions of dollars in equipment. Her small contribution had already proven valuable, but the mission was far from complete. The next morning brought news that changed everything. Chen received a priority message that the Ortega cartel had captured 2 American tourists who had wandered into their territory while on an unauthorized jungle tour. The hostages were being held at a facility approximately 15 miles from Sarah's location, and negotiations for their release had failed. Command is authorizing a rescue operation, Rodriguez explained to Sarah. But we need current intelligence about the facility layout, guard positions, and hostage location. The only way to get that intelligence is through close reconnaissance that could take several days. Sarah realized that her decision was being made for her. 2 innocent Americans were going to die unless someone gathered the intelligence needed for their rescue. Her environmental expertise and newly learned tactical skills made her uniquely qualified for the reconnaissance mission. I'm in, Sarah said simply. What do you need me to do? Rodriguez smiled with genuine respect. Welcome. Sarah's infiltration of the cartel facility began at dawn, moving alone through territory where discovery meant certain death. Her cover as a lost researcher required her to appear vulnerable while secretly gathering intelligence that could save 2 American hostages and destroy a major trafficking operation. Every step tested the survival skills she had learned from the Navy SEALs and the scientific expertise that made her uniquely valuable. The facility was hidden in a river valley surrounded by dense canopy forest, invisible from aerial surveillance, and accessible only through narrow jungle paths that could be easily defended. Sarah approached from the east, following a game trail that Chun had identified during their reconnaissance. Her movement was careful and deliberate, designed to look like someone who was lost and desperate rather than conducting military surveillance. Sarah's first challenge came when she encountered cartel sentries posted along the approach routes. Unlike the professional guards at the main facility, these outer sentries were local recruits with limited training but intimate knowledge of the terrain. Sarah had to convince them she was exactly what she appeared to be, a frightened academic who had stumbled into their territory by accident. The encounter happened at a small creek crossing where 2 guards were smoking cigarettes and playing cards. Sarah made enough noise approaching to alert them without appearing to sneak up, then emerged from the forest looking exhausted and panicked. Her performance was enhanced by genuine fear, making her cover story completely believable. Please help me, Sarah called out in Spanish, her voice shaking with authentic terror. I've been lost for days. My research team left me behind, and I don't know how to get home. The guards reacted exactly as Sarah hoped, seeing her as a potential source of information and entertainment rather than a threat. They questioned her roughly about her presence in the area, but their interrogation was casual rather than professional. Sarah's knowledge of botany and ecology made her cover story unshakable, even under detailed questioning about her research. You're in serious trouble, lady, one guard told her with a mixture of sympathy and amusement. This is cartel territory. People who wander in here usually don't wander back out. Sarah played her role perfectly, breaking down in tears while begging for help reaching civilization. The guards eventually decided to escort her to the main facility, where their supervisors could decide what to do with her. This was exactly what Sarah had hoped would happen, giving her legitimate access to the target location. The walk to the main facility took 2 hours through dense jungle, allowing Sarah to observe the cartel's security measures and defensive positions. She memorized guard post locations, communication equipment, and weapon placements while maintaining her cover as a terrified civilian. The facility was larger and more sophisticated than intelligence reports had suggested. The main compound consisted of multiple buildings constructed to blend with the natural environment. Sarah's botanical expertise allowed her to identify sophisticated camouflage techniques that used native plant species to conceal structures from aerial observation. Solar panels were hidden under living canopy, and ventilation systems were disguised as natural rock formations. Sarah was brought before Miguel Ortega, the facility commander and brother of the cartel leader. He was a dangerous man with military training and the intelligence to be suspicious of unexpected visitors. Sarah's cover story would face its most severe test during his interrogation, where any inconsistency could prove fatal. Dr. Mitchell, Ortega said after reviewing her identification documents, "Your timing is very unfortunate. We have had some security concerns recently, and unexpected visitors make me nervous." Sarah maintained her terrified academic persona while secretly observing everything about Ortega and his operation. The facility was clearly a major logistics hub with sophisticated communication equipment, laboratory facilities for testing drug purity, and holding areas that could contain hostages. She needed to locate the American prisoners while gathering intelligence about operational security. "I just want to go home," Sarah pleaded convincingly. "I'm not involved in anything illegal. I just study plants." Ortega studied Sarah carefully, looking for signs of deception. His military training made him more dangerous than the outer guards. But Sarah's genuine expertise in environmental research made her cover story bulletproof under scrutiny. After 30 minutes of questioning, he decided she was legitimately what she claimed to be. "Dr. Mitchell, you present me with a problem," Ortega explained. "You have seen my facility and could describe its location to authorities. However, killing innocent civilians creates problems with local communities that we prefer to avoid." Sarah's heart raced as she realized Ortega was deciding whether to kill her immediately or find another solution. Her survival depended on convincing him that she could be more useful alive than dead, without revealing her true mission or capabilities. "I won't tell anyone about this place," Sarah promised desperately. "I just want to get home safely. I'm not a threat to your operations." Ortega made a decision that changed the entire mission. "Dr. Mitchell, you will remain here as our guest until we can arrange safe transportation out of the area. Perhaps you can help us with some botanical questions about concealing our facilities." Sarah's cover had worked perfectly. Instead of being killed as a security threat, she was being recruited to help improve cartel camouflage techniques. This gave her legitimate access to all areas of the facility and time to gather detailed intelligence about their operations. Over the next 3 days, Sarah played her role flawlessly while conducting her real mission. She helped cartel technicians improve their concealment systems, using her expertise to make their facilities even more invisible from aerial surveillance. In exchange, she gained complete freedom to move throughout the compound and observe their security procedures. During her second day at the facility, Sarah made contact with the American hostages. Jake and Maria Santos were adventure tourists who had hired an unlicensed guide for a jungle expedition. Their guide had led them into cartel territory, either through incompetence or deliberate betrayal. They were being held in a converted storage building while Ortega decided their fate. Sarah found opportunities to speak with the hostages during her botanical surveys around the compound. She posed as another prisoner while secretly passing them information about the planned rescue operation. The challenge was communicating vital intelligence without alerting cartel guards who monitored all prisoner interactions. "How long have you been here?" Sarah asked Maria during what appeared to be a casual conversation between fellow captives. 6 days, Maria replied. "They keep asking us questions about who knows we're here and whether anyone will come looking for us." Sarah realized the hostages were being evaluated for their intelligence value and potential security risk. If the cartel decided they were too dangerous to release, they would be killed regardless of any rescue attempt. Time was running out to gather the intelligence needed for a successful military operation. That night, Sarah used the radio equipment Chun had given her to contact the SEAL team with her preliminary intelligence report. She transmitted during the early morning hours when cartel communications activity was minimal, using coded botanical terminology that would sound like research notes if intercepted. Base, this is Specimen 1, Sarah whispered into her concealed radio. The greenhouse facility is larger than expected. 23 different species under cultivation, with harvesting operations scheduled for next week. The prize orchids are located in Building 7, Eastern Section. Rodriguez understood her coded message immediately. The facility had 23 guards. Major operations were planned for the following week, and the hostages were being held in Building 7 on the eastern side of the compound. This intelligence would be crucial for planning the rescue operation. Sarah's most dangerous moment came on her third day when Ortega asked her to accompany him on an inspection tour of the facility's outer defenses. This gave her access to detailed information about guard positions, weapon placements, and communication systems, but it also put her in direct contact with the most dangerous person in the compound. Dr. Mitchell, your botanical advice has been very helpful, Ortega said as they walked along the perimeter trail. Perhaps you would consider a permanent consulting arrangement with our organization. Sarah's blood ran cold as she realized Ortega was recruiting her to work for the cartel. Her cover story as a desperate academic had convinced him that she could be bought with money and protection. This offer was both an opportunity and a trap that could expose her real mission. I'm grateful for your hospitality, Sarah replied carefully. But I really just want to return to my university position. I'm not suited for this kind of work. Ortega studied her response, looking for signs that she was lying or playing games. Sarah's genuine desire to escape the jungle made her refusal seem authentic rather than suspicious. After several tense moments, he accepted her explanation. Very well, Dr. Mitchell. We will arrange transportation for you tomorrow, along with our other guests. You have all been very helpful, and your discretion will be rewarded with your continued good health. Sarah understood the threat implicit in Ortega's words. She and the hostages would be killed as soon as they were transported away from the main facility. The rescue operation had to happen within the next 24 hours, or all 3 prisoners would die. That night, Sarah transmitted final intelligence to the SEAL team, including detailed information about guard schedules, weapon positions, and the planned prisoner transport. She also passed critical intelligence about cartel communication systems and command structure that would be valuable for the broader campaign against their network. Base, this is Specimen 1 with final harvest report, Sarah whispered into her radio. All specimens will be relocated tomorrow at dawn. Greenhouse security includes 12 perimeter positions for roving patrols and central command post with full communication array. Recommend immediate harvesting before relocation begins. The rescue operation began just before dawn, as Sarah had predicted. The SEAL team moved through the jungle using intelligence she had provided, approaching the facility from multiple directions simultaneously. Sarah's detailed information about guard positions allowed them to neutralize sentries silently before beginning the main assault. Sarah's role during the rescue was to protect the hostages and provide tactical intelligence about facility layout. When the shooting started, she abandoned her cover as a helpless academic and revealed her true capabilities. The scared researcher who had been abandoned in the jungle was gone, replaced by someone who understood that survival meant fighting back. The battle for the cartel facility lasted only minutes, but the intensity was overwhelming. SEAL operators moved through the compound with deadly precision, using Sarah's intelligence to neutralize threats and secure objectives. Cartel guards were caught completely off guard by the sudden assault, unable to mount effective resistance. Sarah's most dangerous moment came when Ortega realized that the attack was too precise to be accidental. Someone had provided detailed intelligence about his facility, and the timing suggested that Sarah was not what she appeared to be. He cornered her in the communications building, armed and furious about her betrayal. "You lying little witch," Ortega snarled, pointing his weapon at Sarah. "You're not a lost researcher. You're a spy, and you're going to die for this." Sarah faced the moment she had trained for with Rodriguez and Chun. Her survival depended on skills she had never imagined needing before her abandonment in the jungle. The frightened academic was gone, replaced by someone who understood that sometimes violence was the only solution. Using techniques Chun had taught her, Sarah disarmed Ortega and disabled him permanently. The encounter lasted only seconds, but it marked her complete transformation from victim to victor. She was no longer someone who needed rescuing. She was someone who could handle her own problems with deadly efficiency. The rescue operation succeeded completely. Jake and Maria Santos were extracted safely, along with valuable intelligence about cartel operations throughout the region. Sarah's mission had saved lives and struck a significant blow against the trafficking network that had made her a target. But the most important outcome of the mission was Sarah's evolution from abandoned academic to military intelligence operative. Her former colleagues had betrayed her, thinking she would die quietly in the jungle. Instead, she had become their worst nightmare. Someone with detailed knowledge of their locations and activities, backed by the full resources of Navy Special Operations. As the SEAL team extracted from the destroyed cartel facility, Rodriguez offered Sarah permanent recruitment as a civilian contractor with Navy Special Operations Command. Her unique combination of scientific expertise and proven operational capabilities made her extremely valuable for future missions in jungle environments. Dr. Mitchell, you've exceeded every expectation we had when we first recruited you, Rodriguez said during the extraction flight. Command wants to offer you a full-time position with significant compensation and benefits. You'd be based in the United States, but available for deployments worldwide. Sarah considered the offer as she watched the Amazon rainforest passing below the helicopter. The jungle that had once seemed like her grave had become the place where she discovered her true capabilities. Her former life as a university researcher seemed small and insignificant compared to the work she could do with special operations. Sergeant Rodriguez, I accept your offer, Sarah replied. But I have one condition. What's that, Dr. Mitchell? Sarah smiled grimly as she thought about her former colleagues who had abandoned her to save themselves. I want to be involved in any operations that target my former research team. They made this personal when they left me to die. Rodriguez nodded with understanding. Consider it done, Dr. Mitchell. Welcome to Navy Special Operations Command. As the helicopter carried her towards civilization and a new life, Sarah reflected on the incredible journey that had brought her to this moment. Her colleague's betrayal had nearly killed her, but it had also revealed strengths she never knew she possessed. The Navy SEALs had taught her that the wild belonged to those who understood it completely. Dr. Sarah Mitchell had not just survived abandonment in the Amazon rainforest. She had conquered it, and now she was ready to use her new skills to make sure that no one who betrayed innocent people would ever feel safe again. The woman who had been left to die in the jungle was about to become a hunter herself, and her former colleagues had no idea what was coming for them. The Amazon had tested Sarah and forged her into something stronger. Now it was time to show the world what happened when Navy SEALs decided to make someone their own. To Special Operations, Dr. Mitchell, your first official mission begins now. The rescue mission planning revealed the true complexity of SEAL operations in hostile territory. Rodriguez and Chen were part of a larger team scattered throughout the region, each element responsible for specific objectives in a coordinated campaign against cartel infrastructure. Sarah's recruitment gave them a significant advantage in gathering intelligence without alerting cartel security. Sarah learned that her former research team had not simply abandoned her to save money. Intelligence reports indicated that Dr. Marcus Webb had been recruited by the cartel as a scientific consultant, helping them develop more sophisticated camouflage and concealment techniques for their jungle facilities. The other team members had been offered money and protection in exchange for their silence about cartel activities they had witnessed. So they sold me out to save themselves, Sarah said bitterly when Rodriguez briefed her on the intelligence about her former colleagues. It looks that way, Rodriguez confirmed. But, Dr. Mitchell, their betrayal led directly to your recruitment by our team. Without their abandonment, we never would have gained access to your expertise. Sometimes the worst things that happen to us lead to the most important opportunities. Sarah's anger at her former colleagues transformed into determination to make their betrayal meaningful. If they thought abandoning her would keep them safe from cartel retaliation, they were wrong. If they thought she would die quietly in the jungle, they were wrong about that too. Sarah Mitchell was about to become their worst nightmare. The hostage rescue mission required Sarah to infiltrate deeper into cartel territory than any previous assignment. She would need to pose as a lost researcher while gathering intelligence about facility defenses, guard routines, and hostage locations. The mission would take her close enough to the enemy that capture was a constant possibility. Chen spent 2 days training Sarah in advanced concealment techniques and emergency escape procedures. The key to this type of mission is looking exactly like what you're supposed to be, he explained. You're a lost academic who stumbled into cartel territory. Act scared, act confused, but observe everything. Rodriguez provided Sarah with a cover story that was close enough to the truth to be believable under interrogation. She was Dr. Sarah Mitchell, environmental researcher, separated from her team and trying to reach civilization. Her research credentials were legitimate, her knowledge of the area was consistent with her cover, and her fear would be genuine. The final element of Sarah's mission preparation was the most difficult. She had to learn basic combat skills that might keep her alive if her cover was blown. Rodriguez taught her how to use a knife effectively, how to disable an opponent quickly, and how to use improvised weapons from jungle materials. Dr. Mitchell, we hope you never need these skills, Rodriguez said as he showed her how to construct deadly traps from vines and bamboo. But if the situation goes bad, you need to be able to fight back long enough for extraction or escape. Sarah's transformation was complete as she prepared for the hostage rescue mission. The abandoned academic had become a military intelligence operative with skills that would have been unimaginable a week earlier. But the greatest test of her new abilities was about to begin. As Sarah prepared to infiltrate the cartel facility holding American hostages, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. Her colleague's betrayal had nearly killed her, but it had also revealed strengths she never knew she possessed. The jungle that had once seemed like her grave was becoming her weapon. Tomorrow, Sarah would begin the most dangerous mission of her life. But tonight, for the first time since her abandonment, she felt truly confident in her ability to survive whatever came next. The Navy SEALs had taught her that the wild belonged to those who understood it completely. Sarah Mitchell was about to prove that she owned the Amazon rainforest. State your name and how you came to be in this location. The older soldier's voice was firm, but not threatening. Sarah could see in his eyes the kind of competence that came from years of dangerous missions. My name is Dr. Sarah Mitchell. I'm an environmental researcher. My team abandoned me 4 days ago, and there are armed men hunting me. I found this camp and took some supplies to survive. I'm not a threat to anyone. The soldiers exchanged glances, and Sarah could see them processing this information. The younger soldier spoke into his radio headset. Base, we have contact with a civilian female, Dr. Sarah Mitchell, claims to be abandoned researcher. Request instructions for civilian extraction in hostile territory. The response crackled through their radios loud enough for Sarah to hear. Negative on extraction at this time. Sector is hot with cartel activity. Assess civilian threat level and capabilities. If she's legitimate and can handle herself, she might be useful as local intelligence asset. Sarah's hopes sank as she realized these soldiers could not simply rescue her. They were in the middle of their own dangerous mission, and taking responsibility for a civilian would compromise their objectives. But at least they were not trying to kill her, which was an improvement over her recent experiences. The older soldier lowered his weapon slightly. Dr. Mitchell, I'm Sergeant First Class Rodriguez, and this is Specialist Chun. We're conducting classified operations in this area. We cannot extract you immediately, but we can provide some assistance and protection if you're willing to cooperate with us. What kind of cooperation? Sarah asked, though she already suspected what they needed from her. You've been in this area for days, and you've seen cartel activities. We need intelligence about their movements, numbers, and equipment. In exchange, we can provide you with better supplies, protection, and eventually extraction when our mission is complete. Sarah looked at these two professional soldiers and made another life-changing decision. Her research team had abandoned her to save themselves. These soldiers were offering her a chance to not just survive, but to fight back against the people who wanted her dead. The scared academic who had been abandoned 4 days ago was gone. The woman who emerged from the jungle was someone harder, smarter, and much more dangerous. Sergeant Rodriguez, I accept your offer, but I want to know exactly what I'm getting into, and I want to guarantee that you'll get me home alive when this is over. The sergeant smiled for the first time since she had met him. Ma'am, you're about to learn that when Navy SEALs make a promise, we keep it. Welcome to the team.